let's start talking about the orientation process and some of the things that are going to become important to you as you prepare for your LPO session. Now, hopefully you've got a couple weeks from the time that you view this DVD to the time that your class actually starts. If not, that's okay. Some of the things we're going to discuss here over the next little bit of time are going to help you, and they're going to become common themes as you go through the curriculum. You know, most people have probably seen a cartoon like this or this exact cartoon somewhere before in other trainings you may have taken or in other courses you may have taken outside of law enforcement. But it's not, you can't underestimate it or understate the value of this thought. In today's world, with the economy being the way it is and the expectations from communities on their police officers and the members of their police department, this little illustration is very, very true. You can't betray the public trust. And a lot of what we talk about in LPO comes from an ethical background, and we talk about the need for ethics to flow through everything that we do, in all of our actions, in all of our interactions with the community, in all of our missions and our mission statements, and all of the things that we do in our organizations, but also externally with other stakeholders to our organizations. We talk about the public trust and how important it is. So we're going to use this as a common theme as we go throughout the course to take care of it. Because being careful with the public trust can get us things. It can give us influence, it can give us power, if you think of it in that sense of acquiring things, but can also maybe lead us to extra funding and resources if you think of it in terms of grant. If you have an unethical organization and it's proven, or even the perception that you're not the most ethical of organizations, chances are that you may not receive the same level of grant funding or other awards that are possibly out for enforcement agencies to obtain. And you think of, why is leadership a big deal? What is the big deal? Why are we here talking about leadership? And why are we talking about it for 3 weeks? Well, first and foremost, it's a big deal because it affects everybody. It affects not just the followers or just the people who work for you, but it also affects you. We're going to talk about things as to what you maybe do or maybe you don't do that can make you more effective. We're going to talk about the people who work for you or your followers and what can you do for them to make their job better. We can't pay them extra money. There's no $1 million bonus that you can give them, and everybody coming into this line of work realizes that. Everyone realizes that, you know, I didn't join law enforcement for the big $1 million payout at the end of the year, because it's just simply not there. So what can we do? We can make their job fun. We can make their work meaningful. And those are the things that we're going to talk about through our study of leadership. Because for years you think of this picture kind of a representation, okay? You think about our ship here, our ship being our agency. And what happens? We're coming up to a storm. There's problems brewing maybe inside the community. Maybe something happened, maybe you had some kind of a critical incident that while it was okay, what the officer's actions or somebody's actions inside your agency are justifiable, they're 100% legal, they're ethical, they're moral, and all of a sudden, perceptually, somebody's going to try and spin that against you. So you have a storm brewing. You have something coming up. You have a culture inside your agency that's not quite dysfunctional, but it needs some tweaking or some changing. You know what? There's a storm brewing, you're driving at it. And for years, the common practice, the common thought was, well, let's change course of the ships here. We'll steer around the storm. We'll deal with it another day. Well, you know what? It's just not realistic, and it's not a functional thing to keep steering around the storm. Let's confront the storm. Let's make life better. And let's change the culture that we need to change so that everything can flow together a little bit more hand in hand, a little bit on a better basis. And how are we going to do that? We're going to take you through a 3-week study. And part of what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about the science of leadership. Okay? We're going to talk about what exactly that means. We're going to talk about all kinds of behavioral science principles. We're going to talk about lessons and lessons learned from other organizations. And then we're going to also talk about what is the art of leadership. Well, it's really taking all the science that we've taught you and all the things you've acquired throughout your tenure, and you're going to put it into some kind of a practical use, and you're going to build off it. I'm going to practice this until I find what works for me. Doing that together, hopefully we'll take the ship, and instead of steering around every storm, you know what, let's confront some of them. And let's see if we can beat the storm, because I know we can. When you think about leadership, people think of about a lot of different things. And let's just start with a couple different thoughts here, okay? When you have people who work for you, do you set goals for them? And if so, what are your goals for them? I mean, it's just hopefully not, well, hope they survive day to day. That's an important part of a cop's job, but what do you really want them to accomplish? How well do you know the people? What do you want them to accomplish, and what do they want to accomplish for themselves? All those things become important as we study the individual person. What about the work group? Maybe you supervise, you lead a work group. What are your goals for that group? What's the goal of the small unit agency? Maybe it's 5 people that work on an anti-drug unit, a drug interdiction unit. What are your goals for the group? And how do you make the group's job easier? How do you make the people that work inside the group work better together? And last, what's the organizational goal? I can't tell you the number of times we've taught this course and asked people what your mission statement is, and most people can't really tell us exactly what it is. What's the goal of your organization? We get it. Law enforcement, protect, serve. Can't back away from that. It's there. That's what we do. But what does the head of your agency set forth as the organizational goal? What do they want the organization to accomplish? It becomes kind of a key question, a key task, because we're going to look at this definition of leadership and we're going to study it and apply it to almost every lesson that we talk about. Because it is. Leadership is this process. How do I influence human behavior? How do I influence a behavior to achieve the organizational goal that serves the public while developing the individual, the team, the organization for future service? And throughout the course of 3 weeks, we're going to focus on a lot of different things. Really, we're going to spend a week on influencing human behavior, the individual side of it. Okay, I want to develop individuals because I'm not going to be here forever. And when I leave, somebody has to take my spot. And I'd rather have that be kind of a seamless transition than having all the things I've acquired over the number of years you stayed in an organization, 20, 25, 30, or even maybe longer than that, than have somebody have to start over from scratch and try and learn from the ground level up. Let me share what I know with someone else. And in turn, when I leave, someone's ready to take my spot. What about the group? How does the group affect this? How do I develop the team? How do I make the team of people that work for me better so that when I leave, there's not a big upset with the team? The team is functional, they put a new leader in, they get used to it, and they keep moving forward from there. And lastly, what about the organization? How do I develop the organization for future service? Well, that answer is pretty simple because it hinges on the 2 previous things we've talked about. You develop the individuals, you develop the teams. When the head of the organization or the leadership changes, the organization survives and keeps going because functional people inside the organization can take over and lead. And that's the challenge that we're going to talk about. That is what we are going to examine. If you think about admired leaders and all the people who you have worked for in the course of your career and all the people that you've known and have had an influence on you, think about some of the characteristics that they had, some of the things you admired most in people. Now, if we were sitting together one-on-one or face-to-face, I'd have you write a few things down and say, hey, what are some of the things you admire in a leadership? Just write them down. But if you think about them, most people come up with almost the exact same answer every time. And if you read the book, The Leadership Challenge, these are the 4 things, the 4 most given answers that people find critically important in their leadership. First thing is honesty. You want people to be honest. If I don't believe you as my leader, the message means nothing. I won't believe anything you tell me if you're not honest with me. The next thing is competence. People need their leader to be competent, and competent in a lot of things. And I realize the expectations of someone who leads a group are great. People expect you to know everything at every time of the day under any given circumstance, and that's important. And people value that in their leadership. But not only leading and being competent in the job you do, but in how do you treat and lead them. People expect that level of performance and professionalism from you. So being competent in your work. The next thing is they want you to be inspiring. Now, inspiring is not being a cheerleader. It's not going out and cheering on whatever happens. But you know what? I want you to lead me through when adversity strikes. I want you to go forward and get me to the highest level of motivation and performance you can do for me. Because I'm not always going to come to work on the most motivated level. But I need you to inspire me. I want you to be the person that I emulate. I want you to be the person that I want to pattern my behavior after. Inspire me to do great things, because I can do them. I might just need a little help along the way. And the last thing that we talk about, or they talked about in the book, is somebody who's forward-looking. Now, forward-looking, you might also think of the word visionary, if that's the word that came to mind when I asked you to think about some of these characteristics. But forward-looking people are important. You know, how many times have you ever worked for somebody who was always looking in the rearview mirror? Always looking in the rearview mirror. Hey, that's the way we've always done it. That's the way we've always done it. Things won't change. You know what? People today need someone that they can get hope from, somebody that they can look forward to things, or somebody who's visionary and saying, you know what? This is the way law enforcement's going. This is how we're going to adapt our strategies. This is what the result is going to be. And they look down the road instead of looking behind them. We can't change the past, but we can make the future better. So forward-looking or visionary people become important. LPO has got a purpose, and in our little introduction, I talked about some of the things that it's based upon. But you know, really, realistically, what this will do, or what our goal for in LPO is for you, is for that you to take away some of these behavioral science lessons and apply them, because they are going to help you influence individuals, the team, and it's going to help you change or maintain a functional organization for the betterment. It's the science part of it. We talked about the science of leadership. That's the science of leadership. All the individual lessons that we've put into this curriculum and that we're going to explain and help you kind of understand as we facilitate the lessons with you. We're going to teach you something called the leader's thought process. And the leader's thought process is it's kind of like a Sarah model, but what it is it's our way to systematically analyze a problem, identify solutions, and then implement our leader strategies to solve or correct a problem that's happening inside of an organization. And we're going to work through those as well. One of the more important things is we're going to talk about how do I integrate this into my daily leadership practice. Hey, of the 28 lessons that are in the book, you're not going to be able to take all 28 lessons and implement them. No, I've never seen anybody do that, at least not at the first take. What I do hope and expect from you is to take what you can use to apply practically inside your work unit and inside your leadership style. Taking a portion of each lesson, or taking a certain lesson in particular, recognizing someone's behavior, helping make their job better, which would make your job easier. That's what one of the purposes, that's what one of the goals is for us here as we go through this 3-week journey. I want you to develop yourself to the fullest potential. I want you to take and develop yourself to be the best leader you can. And lastly, I want you to commit yourself to a lifelong study of leadership and to take a lifelong approach to learning and studying more about this topic, and in return, hopefully, making an impact on someone else. Because when you think about individuals, there's a couple things I want you to think about. Okay, first and foremost, what are some of the things that individuals in the workforce want today? Now, we'll talk about different topics as far as generational studies and periods of life, whether it be stability periods and transition periods. We're going to talk about those kinds of things, but on a common theme, what do people in an organization want? Now, a couple of classes ago, somebody pulled out a pretty good acronym for me, and they came out with the acronym SOAR. And I kind of like the way it explains some of the people's desires. People want strong leadership, and we talked about a couple of the traits that people are looking for, but they want strong leadership. No one wants to work for somebody who's a pushover. They don't want somebody who, because if you're the pushover, you're not a strong leader, the chances of you getting overtaken by someone above you or even on the same plane as you and affecting your subordinate's work life is greater. And if that happens, they realize that they're going to end up doing more work or work that they really don't desire to do. People want opportunity. Maybe the opportunity to advance, maybe the opportunity just to do more meaningful work for themselves, maybe the opportunity for a better assignment or different work hours, but they want opportunity. If you think of it in terms of generations, and you think about people coming into the workforce, they want their feelings heard. They want to know that their opinion matters. The opportunity to share what they want becomes critically important. They want to be appreciated. Everyone wants to be appreciated. Nobody wants to come to work, do your job, and have no one recognize it. Even if it's so much as a pat on the back saying, hey, you know what? You did a good job at that. I appreciate your hard work. People want that level of appreciation. And lastly, people want respect. Everyone wants to be respected. Everybody deserves to be respected. Respect inside the workforce will buy you credits, and they will also get people potentially more motivated to work for you when the time comes. Because now if we think of something else, we think about the organization. We think about what's the purpose of the organization? What is your organization, lack of a better word, what's the technical core? What does it mean that your organization is a law enforcement organization? What do you do? Well, protect and serve, obviously, we've talked about that, becomes a big part of it. We know we're there to protect and serve the community, to do our best to take care of the community's problems. The community caretaker becomes a functional role. But also, what are some of the other functional expectations that you have? What are the purpose that is there? What does the organization expect of personnel? Do we expect you to be on call 24 hours a day? Is it the expectation that you're going to work your 12-hour shift and you have 12 hours off, or 8-hour shift and 16 hours off? Whatever the case might be for you, what does the organization expect? What is the expectation of your personnel? In other words, what level of performance do you expect from people inside the organization? No one can expect you just to show up and be there for 8 hours. What level of performance do we expect from you? And what does the organization deem acceptable? What do you deem unacceptable? And what is it that happens to a person when they don't behave in the way the organization expects? If they don't behave in that way and they don't get what they want, how do they react? What are their reactions to their perceptions of maybe an inequity? Or what are their reactions when they don't get things that they believe are promised to them? If they react in a way that's adverse to the organization, what does the organization do to counteract that? Throughout the course of all the lessons, we're going to talk about closing the gap. And what exactly does this mean? Well, kind of like we just talked about, people have desires coming in, okay? People want things. If you look at the individual side, people have needs they want fulfilled. You could think of it in terms of Maslow and his hierarchy of needs. People have to have their basic needs met before they can go higher. You could think of it that people bring assets and liabilities, because it's true. I don't know anyone inside of an organization who doesn't have some sort of liability. Now, we hope they're minimal. We hope people don't have some deep-rooted secret that they eluded in the background process that is going to be nightmarish for our departments and our organizations in general. But people have liabilities. But I think more importantly, people have assets. Everyone has a skill set that can help out the organization, no matter what it is. You think of our younger members coming into law enforcement, most of them are pretty technologically savvy. They can use computers. They can do some of the things that we're moving into. They have a skill set. They might be lacking liability-wise in other skill sets, like critical thinking or report writing. We can teach those things, but they have assets that we can use, and we need to use those to accentuate their personal abilities, because everybody is a future leader. Everybody has that potential to be a future leader, and an exemplary leader and an exemplary follower. Everybody is a follower, everybody is a leader. We need to bring out the exemplary side of people's behaviors, because after you look at the individual, we have to look at the organization. The organization, like we talked about in the previous slide, has got a purpose. They need performance from its followers or from its members. We can't just say, here's your keys, here's your radio, go do something. We need you to actually go out and be a functional member of the department doing the job, the tasks that are assigned to you. Last thing is, we need leaders and followers. We need exemplary leaders and followers. We need people to go out and do the job, think critically. We need you to go out and show self-initiative, and as a result, solve problems for the organization when they occur. We need your input. We need your buy-in. We need all these things from you, the follower, to help the organization. Because what happens, depending on what we're talking about, there's the gap. And the gap is the difference between the individual and the organization. But based upon the problem or maybe the issue that's present at the time, the gap can either be wider or it can be narrower. It all depends upon how the individual's perceptions play out and how the organizational desire or need or demand is at the time. If somebody comes in and wants to be a CSI tech, they want to come in and they want to do all the cool crime lab stuff, and the organization says, we don't have that ability to do that, we use a regional crime lab through a state, you know what, that might affect someone's motivation. So the gap would be wider. Whereas on the other side of that, you have an organization who's moving in that crime scene investigator role, and you have people who want to do that job. Well, for them, the gap could get smaller. Depending on people's motivation, their satisfaction, their job performance can change the gap. Because here's some things that we are going to talk about over and over again. And you might say, well, why are we going to talk about motivation, satisfaction, and performance quite so much? Well, you know, they're important things, especially when you talk about people. We need to have good relationships with people. We need to influence people. And to that regard, we're going to talk about motivation. We're going to talk about what motivates people. What are they intrinsically motivated? That feeling, that good feeling inside of you. Are they extrinsically motivated? They want the award. They want the badge with all the little medals and the ribbons that go up and down and maybe even over their back and down their shoulder because they want an award for everything. Or, you know, is there some other source of motivation that's there? We want people to be satisfied. Hey, we want you to be happy with your work. We want you to be able to be in the workplace, and we want you to be able to be happy while you're here. And the last thing is we need performance. We want some level of performance for you, the individual, because when you're assigned to a group, it's going to affect the group's performance. And that is going to affect the organizational success. Those three things together become critically important as we start to talk about some of these definitions and move into some of the topics. Because I want you to understand motivation. I cannot give you motivation. There's nothing I can do to give you motivation. There is no holy water or magic spell I can cast upon you and say, congratulations, you're now motivated. It doesn't work that way. Motivation is something that comes from within inside people. Everybody has their own level of motivation. Now, can I affect your motivation? That's where I can do. I can affect the motivation of an individual. And maybe it might be through a punishment, maybe it might be through a reward, but I can affect your motivation. Because when you think of motivation, there are three dimensions to it. There's an energize, a direct, and a sustain. Three things that I can do to affect your performance if you think about it through the terms of motivation. Because people will inherently wonder, what is it you want me to do? It's a direction. I assign you a task. I want you to go out and police this area of the city. Okay, so what do you really want me to do? Because policing the city is a pretty ambiguous term. So what do you exactly want me to do? Do you want me to enforce traffic laws? Do you want me to stop people that are walking down the street? Do you want me to interact with the community to build relationships? What is it exactly you want me to do? I need some direction. I don't want an ambiguous task. I need you to tell me exactly what you want me to do. Because people will ask, how hard do I have to try to do this? Is it something too easy? Is it something so simple as saying you have to have 5 contacts with a citizen this month? That's generally pretty easy for just about anybody in an organization. What exactly do you want me to do? How hard am I going to have to try? And the persistence piece becomes important because it's how long do you want me to do it? Is this a one-day thing? Is this just a reaction to some complaint that we got? Is this a reaction to a city official's complaint? Is this in response to some incident that might have happened inside the context of our duties? Because what do you want me to do becomes important. It provides direction. How hard am I going to have to try? You know what? That's the energized part, one of the dimensions of motivation. And how long am I going to have to do this? Is this going to be one day? Is this going to be 1 week? Is this going to be 1 month? Is this just until we say stop? How much effort and for how long do I have to do it? It's a dimension of motivation that becomes important when assigning people tasks. Because there's a fallacy that comes with motivation. And the fallacy is if someone doesn't give you job performance, I assign you a task. You know what, officer? I'm going to have you go out and every time you arrest somebody, I want you to interrogate them. I want you to sit down, I want you to read them their rights, and I want you to question them about the crime that they're arrested for and any other crime they might be involved in. And I want you to gather intel for us. We need the intelligence on who they were with and other crimes that they might know have been committed. Okay, that's part of a job of a police officer and a member of a law enforcement agency. I think everybody can agree to that. Well, you know what? What if The officers that we're dealing with have never had to do that before. It's a skill. Now for the trained detective or the trained investigator, you know what? You acquire that skill and you build it up over time. And you get good at it. For someone who's never done it before, maybe it's one of our young members of an agency, or it's somebody who is